Catus Maximus here. This time a simple video. I actually had made another video fixing up a Milwaukee 3/8 builder's drill. Had a bent spindle. I was going to make a video on how to fix it, bend it back. Man, that chuck was like, it was pretty badly rusted. Needed to be cut off with like a Dremel tool. Tried using a big Allen wrench, and man, it wouldn't release, so I decided to give it one good whack, and it made a funny sound and actually broke some of the gear teeth. So I'm going to do this video comparing before and after snap-on Williams half-inch drive swivel head breaker bars. Not all tool fixes work great. Anyway, just as I said, there is a slight difference in part numbers because we have S41A and the S41AA. We can see the change in the font too, where it's the wider, broader Williams font on the older one, and the slightly more concentrated or condensed font on the newer one, where it says USA is smaller, and that little caret right there is actually a date stamp, where they didn't include it on the older ones. On the head side, real similar, although the anvil is just a little bit extended, where it was really short and compact and really close to the head on the older one. I did like that quite a bit. And on the front of the head, we can see where it's just like a nice smooth taper. The anvil is also pretty deeply set. I actually think there's just a little bit thicker, a little bit more material on the forks than there is on the older one, but the older one kind of makes up for it by having it nested down really low, and even lower than the newer snap-on made one. I suspect that you'd be pretty close, although you wouldn't, until you test them, you wouldn't really know which one would fail earlier. One thing that is a definite fail on the newer one is you're noticing a difference in handle length. Yes, that is true. If we nest these up even at the head side, we can see that they cinched you by a couple of inches. Ouchies. A little bit sharper of a grind here. That edge isn't bad, but it is certainly sharper than the real nice smooth taper on the old one. As you can see, we have more of a satin finish. A little bit cheaper chrome plating than the real deep polished chrome that we have on the older one. So kind of sad that you technically get a little less leverage on the newer one, just because they saved a few dollars and made it a little shorter. No longer have a hole in the handle. If we look at the knurling is just a little coarser on the older one, just slightly finer on the newer one. Kind of like the coarser knurling. They did decide to keep the larger diameter, increased diameter handle, so I do appreciate that. As far as overall strength, once again, these are probably both would fail pretty close to each other. It's hard to say if the newer metallurgy of the snap-on built one would ultimately beat out the classic Williams, but I'd like to think that the classic one would hold up pretty good. Nothing isn't perfect. You can get these in a press. These are press fit pins. They're actually a split pin. This is a round pin where they've kind of pinched it with some teeth to expand the metal, and then they're press fit in. They're almost never perfectly centered or evenly pressed in, even on the old ones. You can, of course, put these in a press and even them up, but you're better off just not upsetting because you can only push them in and out once. But since they're using the same diameters, what is kind of nice is you can order anvils, modern snap-on anvils, and replace them, so at least you can still fix these. It's just, let me zoom out a little here, just a little bit sad to see after Snap-on bought Williams, a lot of their stuff was just as good as it was before, but this is an obvious difference. The newer breaker bars are a couple of inches shorter, don't quite have as smoothed out and elegant of a grind on them, and maybe the knurling's not quite aggressive. But once again, we have the S41A versus the S41AA, so at least, they gave you a slightly different part number, so if anybody's looking for these online, they know that they can look for the single A version to get the classic one, or if they really do want the more modern or post snap-on, they can get the AA version. Kind of rare to run into tools like this where you get to see a direct generational change of what is essentially the same tool, and kind of like making videos like this and sharing it with you all. And I really like this Williams. This was besides my Armstrong, this is still one of my favorite half-inch drive breaker bars, just based on, you know, design and aesthetics, as well as being a quality tool. And picking up its newer brother, it's still, once again, I mean, I only paid 15 bucks for this. I paid even more for the older one many years ago. So the newer one is a great breaker bar, and I just never would have known unless I already had the older version and said, wow. It's kind of a shame that they decided to, you know, it seemed to save a bit of money by simply reducing the amount of steel that they're putting into the tool and making technically a little harder to use. You know, a little bit shorter. If you wanted a stubby breaker bar, then you'd use a 12-inch short, half-inch straight breaker bar. Otherwise, you want normal long handle ones, and it's just a shame that on the older one, it'll just be a little easier to use. That couple of inches actually makes a difference when you're using half-inch straight breaker bars. Anyway, thanks for watching.